first event occurred on March 11th, 2025. Our planet has forsaken us. She became fed up with our human atrocities and opened her mouth wide. And she let out a scream. What emerged from that hole left their mark, and they were gone as quickly as they came. It was after this encounter that we knew we were not alone. Leaders from around the world gathered to discuss strategy in case they ever returned. Experts were consulted in every field of science known to mankind. A group of specialists were sent down there to see what they could find. Most of them had family. They were called brave. They were called foolish. I called one of them husband. This is where the story ends. And my story begins.
And I could give you a clue that there is no fortune. In the heat of the night, this is what you wanted. Would you give it a try, or just keep on wondering? In the shadows I wait just to pull you under. Oh my God! Go!
Hello and welcome to another episode. I am actually really excited to have Jonathan Hedrick on today. I don't know too many indie comic writers and people that are being as active. Like he is on Kickstarter and stuff like that, but he's also in the mainstream market, like with the companies he's working with, which is a challenge, and I'm sure it has to be aggravating at times. But man, he's stubborn, like the best creators are. Anyways, we're excited to have him here. I will let Mike introduce him.
Jonathan has been very active in the independent comic industry. He has done a number of his own titles. He's published through Scout, Source Point Press, Second Sight Publishing, Freakshow Knight, Space Cadet, Hyperaware, The Recount. How'd you get in with Scout?
I had an opportunity at a convention to speak to James Pruitt, but I showed him some of like the artwork I had and the concept of it, and gave me his business card, and he suggested I go on the website and submit it just like everyone else, can do. And I did so, and 2 weeks later, didn't hear back. So I followed up because that's what their website suggested. And then I got an email back and they said, show us more. And conversations went back and forth for a little while. And then a contract was emailed to me. So now that was back at the end of 2019. So since then, I've signed 2 other books with them, Space Cadet, my all ages book on their Scoot imprint, and Quicksand, which just came out today.
Do you do your own art?
I wish. I wouldn't be so buried in debt if I could. But no, I hire out the artwork. Thankfully, I've been able to collaborate with a lot of fantastic artists like Deborah Lanchinese, who's the artist on Quicksand. I've worked with Stefano Carticelli a number of times. So I've just been blessed that amazing artists would work with me. you know.
Are you paying these guys out of your own pocket?
For the most part, yeah. Yes. Upfront, you know, either upon pages being completed or half upfront, half later. But majority of them aren't doing artwork for free or waiting till. None of them are waiting for the royalties to kick in. That's for sure. That's just too long of a wait. But occasionally I can get one to wait until the Kickstarter's done. But that's far and few.
Have all these books ended up in the black?
Yes and no. I guess it all depends on the amount of stuff that you're gonna, you know, get granular with and spending. So, for example, like Space Cadet, that book with Stefano and I paid him for the artwork. The royalties haven't matched up yet with how much the print run costs to make, so that one's still in the red. But I've been able to sell copies of Space Cadet personally, either through comps or additional copies that I've purchased myself with the creator discount. So it's like it's come back, but it's not like a rolling paycheck.
Well, that one's a tough sell too, because it's an all ages book, and it's just
exactly
those are very tough sells.
Yes, absolutely.
What's Space Cadet about?
So it's a one-shot story, 24 pages, about this little boy who really wants to go to the moon one day, and the kids at school kind of poke fun at him about that wish. And one night he falls asleep and wakes up on the surface of the moon, and a friendly astronaut gives him a tour and teaches him about how important it is to work hard and you know, do good in school and so forth. And one day he could be an astronaut as well. And it's just a gorgeous book. All pages are splash pages. It's not made to be read like sequential normal comic book story. Right. So we wanted to make it so it's a younger all ages, where they could open it up, and even if they can't read, they could still be like really drawn to the artwork and just be like, wow, look at that. And like grow into the book as years go on. And
it's a beautiful book too. Is it all watercolor?
It is. Yeah.
Stefano did. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a copy there, J.S.?
I do. No, I do not. I'm really bad about too. Like if I have a book that I like, I either give it away or have someone buy it.
I might have one in arm reach. My table back there's a mess right now.
But they have a big. I don't know if that's a Scout headquarters or if you have it, the big standee or whatever.
Yeah, I have a big, like, it's like about a 5-foot cardboard cutout that I bring with me to certain signing events in case the kiddos want to take a picture with the Space Cadet.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, Stefano, he's done a bunch of stuff for heavy metal and everything, but he's also done. Didn't he just win a?
Bram Stoker?
Yeah.
I think he's won twice, 2 different years.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, he did. He did one of the stories in my Nemo the Lad comic that is supposed to come out sometime from Scoot. He's great to work with, and I love the watercolor stuff that he does on there. Right. And I actually wanted to ask you this because now that you've done a few things and you're meeting, you know, and kind of connecting with all these different artists, it's interesting as a writer. When you have to kind of pick and choose like the styles for the audience, I assume that you're kind of starting to run into that where you gotta really pick the right style for the story for the audience that you're doing it for, because you have contacts with a lot of different good artists now.
Absolutely, and I wish I could hire them all, but I only have so many scripts available on top of so much, money to pay people for.
Right.
And I've even had some people say, "Oh, if you have a one shot, I'll do it for you for free," and we can Kickstarter. I'm like, yeah, but I don't have a one shot for you.
Right, yeah.
So, and I have to say, tiptoe through the tulips as to not come across as rude or it's like that's a great opportunity, but if I had a script available, I'd have to give it to someone here or there because maybe it just doesn't match your art style.
Right,
I
yeah.
learned with Stefano, for example, that I like keeping him to like a 4-panel maximum on a page to let him really get full throttle. If you start doing 6, 7, 8, 9 panels, you really lose what you can get out of Stefano. Not to say that he can't do smaller sequential artwork, but I think you get a lot more out of them with larger panels.
We have Bronze Star launching next month, and Pat Broderick is the artist, and I gave him pages which were no more than 5 panels.
Yeah.
And when he returned them, they were 8 to 10 panels.
Well, that's a whole other problem in itself. Yeah.
And by the way, Mike, I don't know if you know this, but Jonathan is actually married to an artist.
Mm-hmm. Yep. My wife, Francesca Fantini, is also an Italian artist. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's best known for a book at Scout called Stake. She's done other things too. She's had a book at Aftershock called Artemis and the Assassin. She's done some great cover work, and she's working on a book that I wrote right now. So
finally,
very exciting. Yes, very exciting.
What's the name of her book? Did you say Stake?
Stake, Stake, like a steak for a vampire.
Yeah,
got it.
I'm curious, like, as far as from when you started to now, how your approach to writing, or and also even kind of like from a business side or whatever, like how like both those things have changed.
Yeah. So as far as the writing goes, my process has pretty much been the same, but sometimes I break down like what my goal is daily or weekly or monthly. Right. Where when I first started, I could do a script in 1 to 2 weeks, but now I'm like maybe I pace myself in 1 page a day, and that's it, or 2 pages a day or something like that. And it all depends on the longer term goals. As far as writing style, that's been the same. I just trying to diversify the storytelling though. I haven't made 2 stories about people with clown masks shooting people just because they voted for. So and I have so many other different types of stories I want to tell that I don't think many of them are going to overlap. And they're going to be maybe adjacent to genres, but not the exact same. As far as the business side of it, definitely always growing and learning as a project manager. And when I go into a project, I have a different mindset of where I want this to go, and backup plans, publishers in mind, of course, and what I expect from a publisher too. So I can honestly say there's some publishers that are not on my list anymore that were used to be at the very top.
Right.
I'm fortunate enough now where I feel confident in a mid-size independent publisher, but it comes with different challenges too.
Right.
Some of them you can't have a cover in 8 pages and submit it to them. Some of them they want based off of a 2-page written pitch. And that's all you can give them. And that's not a lot to impress someone. Right. Especially when you haven't, you don't have a big 2 book to back you up.
Are you writing full time?
No, I work outside of comic books full time. So it's lack of better words, a side hustle is the comic books right now.
What's your job?
I'm an X-ray tech.
Yep. Nice. Because I work before I started writing professionally. I worked in an orthodontist office.
Oh, okay.
And half of my job was working in the lab, and the other half was doing X-rays. And records kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it pays the bills, so I can't get full-time work in writing right now. It would be very stressful. To say the least.
I did this X-ray of this guy, and he had a big metal plate in his head.
Oh,
and
God.
and he didn't know it was in there.
Oh.
And he was like asking like, so, like I didn't even say anything. I was just like looking at it, and he saw me looking at it. And he's like, "What?" He's like, "What's that big square thing?" I was like, "It looks like a metal plate, like you, like if you were like in the military or something." And he had, and he's like, I don't have a metal plate in my head.
You must have hit like, the right part of his brain.
Yeah, I was like, I told the doctor, I was like, don't say anything about the metal plate.
How is it possible that he didn't know he had a metal plate in his hand?
I don't know, and this is the thing too. Is it's like because the doctor too. He's like, he's the last patient. There's nobody else's X-ray to confuse it with. Like, it's not like we grabbed the wrong one or something. I mean, like, and then you could tell by his face, and you could see the little bit of soft tissue in there. It's like, it's definitely like his profile and everything. It was like, I was like, but you know, as a true writer, I'm like, I got to make a story about this.
Yeah.
It's gotta be.
So it sounds like it reminds me of something from like Tales from the Crypt or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I was even gonna say like something, you know, and even something else where it's like the military experimented on him or something, and he doesn't know like what, you know.
He can't see it when he looks in the mirror, but everyone else
can.
Yeah.
You had anything weird like that happen, or that you're allowed to talk about?
One thing that stands out was when I had to X-ray a dentist who came in that had punctured the hypodermic needle for Novocaine straight through his hand, and like the syringe was still on one side, the needle was poking out the other, and I'll remember that vividly because I couldn't believe a dentist was that bad at like injecting Novocaine that it went through their other hand. Like, why was your other hand even that close?
Right. When you're little, Jonathan. What like how did you first get interested in like stories or comics or TV, whatever?
Well, the first comic book I remember picking up was one of the adaptations of the Ninja Turtle cartoon show. So it wasn't the Eastman and Laird typical the true Ninja Turtle comic books. It was one based off of the cartoon show, which I was a huge fan of. Picked it up off the spinner rack and read that thing backwards and forwards, and picked up like movie adaptation comic books too for Batman, the Turtles movie, and so forth. And I think that introduced me to sequential comic book storytelling. And then just being a child of the 80s and 90s, when we had like you know, the Batman the animated series, X-Men cartoon, Spider-Man cartoon, that did a good job of retelling some of the greater stories within those characters' mythos that wanted me to have more. So, you know, I wanted to know more about, you know, Robin's origin and more about Days of the Future Past and Venom and things like that. But, you know, you only got so much in that 30-minute episode, and there was like a wealth of, you know, knowledge waiting for me in all those back issues. And I was fortunate enough to live very close to a flea market that you know, flea markets, you're going to have access to so many comic books, and, you know, you don't even have to be current. And then on top of it all, in the early 90s, when I was really getting into collecting and reading and finally learning creators' names and going to a comic book because of the creator, that's when the image revolution happened. And now you have all these new books coming out. And then the 90s happened with all the other publishers that came and went, and the changes and the gimmicks and things like that. But I think it was a good time to be introduced to comic books. It sunk me in for sure. And I was already someone that was fascinated by storytelling. I always had been writing things in composition books, poems or short stories, sometimes just titles, or I was writing log lines before I even knew what a log line was. I was the kid that was like fascinated with like a movie trailer. Like, I didn't care about the movie so much, but I liked how the trailer, you know, it represented everything. So yeah, I think all that led up until about 5 years ago when I took one of those short stories and taught myself how to adapt it to a comic book script. Then I had the script in hand. I was like, well, now what do I do with it? And then I learned the process of the streamlined method of making a comic book. And once I figured that part out and realized how, possible it actually is, then I was hooked on that side of it. I'm like, okay, now I know I can make a comic book, have it tangible in my actual hand, make it something I can sell. Let's see where else I can go with this.
You outline?
Yeah, I outline and do my first drafts all by hand. I'm still analog on that side. So, and then everything else I type up afterwards. So my first, the script typed up is usually my second draft.
You pretty much say that none of that has really changed.
No, I did try to write one script without going to paper first. Right. And then I hated it. I didn't hate the script, but I hated the fact that I didn't have a paper version of a handwritten page. So I went back and hand wrote neurotically everything I just typed. I wrote on a sheet of paper just to have it. I felt I was able to sleep better at night after that. So now I still do it. Do a page.
A printer?
A printer?
Yeah.
Like a printer to print the comic books, or a printer?
No, he means to print the script.
Oh, yes. I can still print the script. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But he's old school, Mike. You should appreciate that.
I do.
Yeah, I feel I can get more loose with pen and paper.
I agree with you. I do a lot of writing by hand.
Mm-hmm.
You have like friends or even people that like your stuff or whatever that are like, I never have any idea what you're working on next. It's like every time I talk to you, it's like it's a totally different story. It totally is like they want to, like they kind of want to put you in a box,
yeah.
and say do this, and it's like, I don't know. Like Mike's always been kind of all over the place from when he.
My stories choose me.
That's debatable. They're definitely, but it's definitely like all over the place. Have you had any of that, Jonathan, where you've had people where they're like, gosh, man, just stay in one lane?
Well, I have several times like listed off my catalog,
right?
And we're saying, right, here's the name of this one. This is what this one's about, and people are like, you're all over the place. You got this violent. Political thriller, then you have an all ages book, and you have the slice of life, then you have the zombie book. It's like those don't coincide very well. And like that's what I like about it. I do a signing and I have a variety of different things. So if you don't like that, well, what about this?
Right.
I do a lot of commissions,
which Mike has found new sides of himself through doing commissions.
Yeah.
But I think that's honestly, like, for a lot of writers and creators, I feel like that's the thing. I mean, it's like these are all like different sides of us,
right?
That we're expressing. Granted, people who stay more in one lane tend to make more money, because it's more commercial. Not always, but
right.
I don't know. I would question how happy they are, though.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because if you're just being a product.
I'm adapting a series of novels now into graphic novels. John Ringo is the writer. He's a science fiction guy. It's military science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys came to me. But when I adapt a novel, I pride myself on not using any of my own language. I try to make it as purely the writer's version as possible with visuals.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mike did he wrote the which a lot of people really liked a lot. He wrote the Heir to the Empire.
Heir to the Empire
comic adapt. How do you feel about that? Would you be interested in doing some adaptations or?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to take a shot at that. One of the things I liked when I was a kid was reading those
right
comic book adaptations or even the novelizations. I remember reading the novelization of Batman Forever before the movie actually came out.
Right.
And I was reading it, and I was like, "Oh man, I hope that this actually
This is going to
happens.
be so good.
It's gonna be so good."
Who wrote the book?
I think it was Chuck Dixon. It was either Chuck Dixon or Peter David.
Yeah. Somebody that's really good that can actually write.
Right. Or it may have been Denny O'Neil. I know he was doing a lot of novelizations back
Right.
then.
Denny was my editor.
He is fantastic. I wish I could have got a chance to meet him before he passed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're able to do different things in those in different mediums. You know, some things work better in movies than it would in a comic book, and vice versa.
It's funny you mention that because comics are they're what you make of them. And the persistence of horror comics fascinates me because I got to tell you that comics are the worst medium for horror there is. Because no matter how horrible the situation or the picture, it's just a picture on a page. You can always turn the page or set it down.
Yeah.
A novel, you can't because it'll grab you. And a movie, you can't because they control the pacing.
Yeah.
Most of all, the sound. I mean, you don't understand how important sound is to a horror story until you see it well used in a movie.
Yeah.
Like The Haunting, the original, which is done in black and white.
Yeah.
And there's no grisly, there's nothing in there that's violent on screen. It's just the sound alone will terrify.
Yeah, that's just enough. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Quicksand goes over. I do.
I hope well. It's a great comic book for those that like grounded sci-fi storytelling. You know, we think of sci-fi and we think, you know, Star Wars, Star Trek, something in outer space, but science fiction can happen on Earth too. You know, it doesn't always have to be in outer space. So,
what would you compare it? What would you compare it to?
A little bit of Starship Troopers, a little bit of Stargate.
Yeah,
both, you know, are very. There's a space component to them, but it's on the ground for the most part.
Yeah.
Have you read Starship Troopers?
No, I've been meaning to. That's one of the ones I've been meaning to read since I saw the movie. Yeah,
it's a very good movie.
Yeah.
What about the book, Mike?
The book is one of his best.
Yeah. Just want to make sure. Since you were talking about the book, I was just making sure that. Yeah.
I've read a lot of Heinlein. I read all the classic science fiction when I was growing up. I haven't read science fiction in a long time. I'm drawn to crime fiction and historical fiction and straight history. And I'm lucky I read a book a month these days.
It's hard to pick up a novel or, you know, a regular prose book lately. Time is limited.
I have a bedroom book, a bathroom book, and a kitchen book.
That's a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
Chip away at it when you can. Right?
Like whatever I'm working on, like it's really hard to entertain myself with the same medium that I'm working in. So when I'm writing comics, I'm generally not reading comics very much. And it's like if I'm writing like a short story or a novel or something, I'm really not like reading. And it's not because I'm not afraid. It's just it's not entertainment. It's like work. Because it's like that's where I'm at when I'm in that genre or whatever. But especially with like TV stuff, like it seems like they can't get over the Hunger Games. Like there's so many like kind of like Hunger Games knockoffs. TV series like all over the world, you know, from all these different countries, including America. It's like it's like everybody's on this island and they're all getting picked off one by one, and preferably they're all young, and you know, like it's like
what's a variation of the slasher film? It's like it's Friday the 13th.
Oh yeah,
I know you're looking forward to Meg 2.
Yeah. It's just gonna be fun, Mike. Yeah. It's gonna be an Indiana Jones movie.
I hope so.
I have a little bit of insight to some of the behind the scenes stuff since I do stuff with Steve Alton, and I did the Meg adaptation for the novel,
which is brilliant, by the way, and a lot better than the movie.
Yeah, well, and that's what and he has said that too. But at the same time too, like Mike, you know, you've had so many things that have been talked about becoming movies or TV shows, it's like it's a miracle when it actually happens.
Yes.
So like Steve is very grateful to have anything on the screen, and that's his thing. He's like, man, I've been working at this for so long. He's like, I kind of hate it when people bash it. He's like, I get it because they're like my fans and they like my story, just like if they did Quicksand and they totally changed everything about it.
Right.
I'll tell you, the cast was like so freaking excited. Like after they got done filming, I mean, they're like, this movie is gonna be like, I mean, they were hyped up. And some of the last times where I actually heard that kind of like behind the scenes from like a cast and stuff was like when the first Iron Man movie came out.
Are you talking Meg 1 or Meg 2?
Meg 2. I don't know that. I hope Steve isn't watching this. I don't know that I'm going to see it in the theater. I would love to.
I don't blame you because you can get it at home. They start streaming this stuff as soon as it's released.
I know. Yeah,
well, now that they're making the TVs bigger too, it's like
you can have your home theater.
Right. So if you had one of your things made into a movie or TV show, which one would you?
I would say Dream Master, which is the book.
Oh yeah, got to talk about that. That's another one that's
Yeah, that one from BlackBox, I think would look so cool because it takes place 99% in like the dream world, and it has this real dreamscape look to it. So I think it would be very cinematically appealing. Like the audience could enjoy what could be adapted to a big screen with a book like that. So that one I would push the most.
Tell us more about the story for that.
So Dream Master is about this unsung entity who protects us in our dreams from our nightmares. Because in this world, you could actually die in your nightmare, and you're being chased by a werewolf, and he stops a werewolf, and then you wake up and you have no idea he did that. Like no idea that your life was almost at risk. So I pitched that book a lot as imagine Freddy Krueger, but a good guy.
Right.
So that's like the elevator pitch for that book. So issue 5, I believe, landed in comic book shops today after many pushes. I think it started off as being a March release, but that ends the first volume. I've already written the second volume for BlackBox, and they've given me a green light to write the third volume, which is really great because BlackBox, that's hired writing. It's not my IP. I don't pay for the artwork. I get a page rate, and it goes to the direct market. So
what
good deal for me.
And is it going to be the same art team and all that on the other volumes, or
that's the plan? I think that's what we're waiting for. Luigi Baricelli, the artist on the first volume, I think he just had to take a hiatus for another project, but then he'll be back up and running for the second volume.
And that has really good art and everything too.
Oh, he's so fantastic. The amount of detail he puts in every square centimeter. I can't take any credit for the majority of the art direction.
That's one of the beautiful things about comics when you work with a good artist and they make you look really, really smart.
Exactly.
Kudos to you for paying your artists and everything through Kickstarter and different. I mean, it's just becoming the way that things are, even for people that are introverts and like a lot of comic creators are. But it's just the way that everything's going. I mean, ultimately it's good and allows more freedom and independence and everything. But at the same time too, it's like, you got to kind of wear all the different hats.
Yeah, and be the loudest person on the internet. And, it's not easy.
and it's and I don't even know how many. I'm assuming most of our audience knows, but like the number one thing that's funded on Kickstarter are comics. So that's where the most competition is. So it's extremely hard to get noticed and stuff on there, especially if you don't have like a huge name or anything that is attached and
or a very sexualized book.
Right.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's not crazy violent or crazy sexual,
Yeah.
and then it's like, yeah, you're gonna have.
It's
You're
gonna be
definitely,
tough.
but I say that because, and this has even come out from some of our other guests and things, but also just in the regular comic news. I mean, there's people that like Marvel still owes money to from like over a year ago, and it's like, I mean, granted, so that's the great thing about like independent, like people like you and Mike and me and others that are doing things on Kickstarter. I mean, you are actually helping the artists and people make money, because the big companies are not giving it to them unless they're like a superstar or something like that. But even a lot of them are getting pretty disgruntled. They're just a little not too willing to talk too publicly about it. But a lot of them, they can't live if they're not getting, if it's taken like over a year to get paid. I mean, that's just, it's insane. At least they know, it's like, that they're going to get the money from the Kickstarter or whatever. And so there are a lot of great artists like willing to do stuff like that.
Yeah. It's not a thing to shake your finger at. There's definitely money that can be made. There can be money that can be lost in it too.
Oh yeah.
Just like there can be money getting in a partnership with a publisher, and you can also lose money with getting a partnership with the publisher too. So it's just like, know your path, know your rights, know what your goal is, and there's so many things that are out of your hands too. That's the thing. You could go into every project, every business or partnership with the best intentions, and who knows what happens.
Jonathan is, I won't say always, but he's very often either at a convention or doing a signing at a store or something like that. I mean, he is putting himself out there and not just depending on the publisher or whatever, because you have to. I mean, you have to.
I just operate as if the publisher isn't going to market at all. And
that's a good way to act in this day and age.
And for the most part, I'm right. They did a good job at paying the print run up front, which having that diamond account is handy. But besides that, if you're not showing your worth beyond that, if you have a big enough bankroll, you can get a diamond account. You can pay for a print run. Crowdfunding has shown that. So what else are you going to bring to the table besides, taking 50% of my royalties after your print cost has been made up for? So that's why I'm out there. I have 2 out-of-state cons in June, and that's costing me travel, air, hotel, time off work. I'm going to be in Philly the first weekend of June. I'm going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina, the third weekend of June. Those are big trips, and granted, it's going to be fun, but it's also, that's work. That's not, me taking pictures all over Philly and sightseeing where Rocky was the entire time.
Right.
But it's me like getting in, getting out, and hoping I made enough to make the trip worth it. I can't even bank on the trip being in the green. I just, was it enough back to do that? And did I make enough contacts?
You got to buy a table?
No, that's the thing. I'm not buying tables at this point right now. I'm emailing and putting myself out there to the showrunners and saying, can I be a guest at your con? This is what I bring. These are my credits. My wife usually comes with me too. She's an artist, her credits, and we kind of like sell ourselves that way. Like we'll get to your con, just give us that $300 table for free. We'll pay the $600 flight to get to you. Can you give us that 6-foot bingo hall table for free?
Right. Yeah, like you said too, it's a lot easier to sell the Space Cadet comic. Like you have stuff that sells easier in person
Right.
when you can show it, and that actually looks really good. And
For sure.
and there are certain it's interesting because I have looked at different things, different certain art styles, and some of them, like, yeah, it's just like it doesn't look that great digital, like on the screen, but like when you can show people in person, it makes a huge difference. And honestly, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to have Jonathan on, because it's like, because he's working for it. Like he's not just doing it and interested in a lot of the same different, like, crazy wacky things that Mike and I are, but he's, you know, he's actually putting the work in and going around and doing what he can and doing you know, on top of having the day job and stuff. And that's, you know, that's what I want a lot of the people that want to do comics and stuff to realize, that they're, you know, because it's work, and if you're gonna really do it well, you have to put the work in. And you're not like a big sales guy. Like,
I'm not. I'm not the guy that's standing in front of the table putting the comic book in other people's hands. I make eye contact constantly with people, and you know, if they actually stop and look, you know, I'm like, hey, my little spiel is, I wrote every comic book on this table. If you have any questions, I can explain anything further. I can talk about what that book's about, what it costs.
Yeah.
And go about, you know, for window shopping. But I cannot. I don't want to. I've seen that. I've tabled next to those people that are like, you gotta buy this comic book, and you have to buy the 3 variants for it too.
Yeah.
No, they are.
I have a friend named Ron Fortier. Ron's a Vietnam veteran. I mean, he's no spring chicken, but he's put out so many books under his own title, which is Airship 27, that he completely covers the table. And we're talking about 24 titles. And he's just naturally gregarious. And he starts talking to anybody who stops there. And I think he makes a sale to 90% of the people who stop to look at his table.
Yeah, some people got that gift too, that they could sell, you know, a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. You know, it's part of it, going out there, and I get a lot of joy out of it too. You know, not just making the sale, but when I even see someone that comes to a show that brings the comic book, like, oh, I like this book. Can you tell me more about it? That is what it's about. Because I remember the first time I met creators that I knew of, and I had good interactions with some and bad interactions with some. Yeah. And I bought more of the comic books from the people that I had good interactions from.
Yeah, and it must have been really cool the first time somebody brought one of your comics in for you to sign.
Oh yeah,
always very exciting.
Yeah, it's very flattering and also humbling experience. So, and then there's the first time when someone brings a stack and you can tell it's just for resale.
Yeah.
Like, all right, this guy does it. Oh, so you read all these? No, I'm just going to sell them on eBay after you sign them. Like, oh,
Zenescope. Yeah. Really funny guy. The like owner of that and some other people, they're all like out to dinner with this other guy, and he's like, man, like, and the guy's wife or something like that was there, and there were some other like comic professionals there. Like professional artists and writers and everything that worked for other companies and things. Mm-hmm. And he's like, man, Zenescope, like, I love you. He's like, I have every single one of your issues. And then he's like, which one is like your favorite story? And he's like, I don't read them. I feel like that's probably a lot of the stuff that goes on with the like super violent, super sexual stuff that's on Kickstarter.
Oh, for sure. A lot of it's
buying
just
it for the pictures.
Exactly. Yeah, they're never going to open it. It's going to stay in that bag and board. But I mean, there's a place for that. The comics have survived as long as they have because, you know, just the collectability of it. So I'm not knocking that either. I know if people like artwork, that's great. You know,
is there a good place to see your wife's artwork?
Yeah, I would say follow her on Instagram. She's very active there, and she has a link to her portfolio too. Her the website that she has some different things on. But yeah, follow her on Instagram, Francesca Fantini, And yeah, she's always promoting herself well. So it's a good place to see all of her artwork. And she'll post things that are for sale. When her commissions are open too, she'll promote that. So,
are you selling stuff on your website too, or do you just have links to other?
I have a web store on my website. Yep.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just put things up sporadically on there. Do sales from here sometimes, but there's also links on my website to the publisher's web source too. So you can get to the Recount web store on Scout. You can get to Dream Master's web store on BlackBox Comics and so forth. Yes, I have a Substack. Yep. The bi-weekly email newsletter. Just kind of talk about whatever, I've been writing and some of my other interests here and there. Just a fun little thing to do. It's also another form of promotion too. Yeah,
and it's a good way for them to keep up with when you are going to have a Kickstarter,
exactly,
or an appearance or whatever. But yeah, it's definitely good to give them a heads up for.
Some people still like email newsletters. There's still a strong.
It's really weird. There are people that do.
Yep, I think it has to do a lot with just how crowded social media is. If you get someone in a 5-minute read of a email newsletter, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's doing better than me. I keep trying to make myself do that.
Well, I got a wife that reminds me.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not easy. Okay, well, it was great having you. Any last things that you need to share or anything, or you?
No, I think we covered a lot. I really do appreciate you having me on. I thank you both.
Thank you, Jonathan.
You're welcome.
The first event occurred on March 11th, 2025. Our planet has forsaken us. She became fed up with our human atrocities and opened her mouth wide. And she let out a scream. What emerged from that hole left their mark, and they were gone as quickly as they came. It was after this encounter that we knew we were not alone. Leaders from around the world gathered to discuss strategy in case they ever returned. Experts were consulted in every field of science known to mankind. A group of specialists were sent down there to see what they could find. Most of them had family. They were called brave. They were called foolish. I called one of them husband. This is where the story ends. And my story begins.
I could give you a clue.